I think there are like other avenues of, adventure and exploration that touch on those types of themes. But most of them involve like traveling to faraway places and exploration. And, I think as humans, like, I think by nature, we like exploring, whether that's like the world around us or ourselves, our relationship with other people. And I think, yeah, as humans, we're just finding ways to continue to explore. And for me, it's kind of exploring my own personal limits and exploring. I just love seeing the world. I love traveling. I love seeing other places and kind of experiencing other places. And, I've found that the best way for me to do that is through climbing.
There seems to be an element of obsession to climbers, something that must be achieved in order to rest. Ordinarily, I am resolutely and completely in awe of any athlete, but Emily Harrington attains the impossible. She's one of the most accomplished climbers on the planet. Her body is this incredible tool that allows her to achieve seemingly impossible feats. I've always wondered what it's like to live in such a physicality and to meet nature with nothing more than some metal hooks and a rope. I hope you enjoy. This is The Other Pod. Hello.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, how are you doing? It's where are you?
Northern California.
Okay, we are too. We're
Yeah.
in Tahoe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
How's it?
very hot.
It's abnormally hot. No, I said
I
that. I
mean,
was
it's
like,
like nice, but it's just not normal.
no, it's been weird. I was like, is this what global warming is? Like, I don't know what's happening because
Yeah,
it's 85 degrees here.
I mean, it's super nice here. It's like really pleasant, but it just feels weird is all.
Agreed. No, no, agreed. It feels unnatural.
Yeah, totally.
No, I understand. How are you
Yeah.
doing otherwise? Did you get back from anything recently? Are you going to anything soon?
Yeah, both I would say.
Okay.
Kind of always.
Yeah.
I had a busy first part of the year and was traveling a bunch. And then we got back from Europe about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And then I did a short trip to Las Vegas yesterday, one day for speaking, and now I'm back.
Great.
Um, and I go to St. George next week for something else, and then I'm back. So it's kind of like just
Is
back and
life
forth.
more being who you are and talking about it, or is it more climbing now? Or is it a split?
Both, yeah. It's
Both.
climbing trips. The longer ones are either climbing or skiing, and then the quick ones are like more work.
Yeah.
Speaking. I do a lot of corporate speaking, which is um, actually really great. And
Huh.
not that much of a heavy lift at this point because I have like a good system and I have
Yeah.
like a good presentation, and so I can just like go to places and speak and then be out, and it works really well.
So I did a lot of research. I read about you. I read about a lot of other climbing things to understand. I watched, so there's a surprising amount of movies about this,
Yeah,
which
there's
I
a lot
did
of
not
movies out there.
expect.
Climbing
Yeah,
films, I know.
I
It's
know.
it's becoming mainstream,
It
sort
really
of.
is. I mean, enough, right? Where I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I understand how these things work more now. Um,
totally.
so correct me if I'm wrong, but you were born in Boulder. You began indoor climbing as a child, which they seem to differentiate between a lot, which I don't totally get why those are such different things, if you wouldn't mind explaining it. But what drew you to climbing and what changed when you did become, if it's the right term, an outdoor climber?
Yeah, so I mean, I did grow up in Boulder. I started climbing when I was 10 years old. I did start climbing in a climbing gym, and I was one of the first generations of kids who grew up climbing in a gym. I was first exposed to climbing in the gym. And that's how I think most people now are exposed to
Yes.
climbing because it has grown so much in popularity because specifically because of gyms. I mean, if you live in an urban center, you have a climbing gym close to you and you can go and experience it. So I think the differentiation comes from the fact that climbing is so popular now because of climbing gyms, and indoor climbing is sort of like its own thing. Um, it's just a very different kind of path. A lot of people who climb indoors will probably never go outdoors
Oh,
because it's almost like its own. It's almost like its own fitness activity now. It's like instead of going to Pilates, you go to the bouldering gym. So um, that said, I grew up climbing in the gym, and I remember when I first climbed, I I got really high off the ground, and I felt like afraid. I felt
Okay.
the exposure, and I remember being pretty just intimidated by it, but I just kept going, and I got to the top, and I felt like I had really achieved something. Like that
Right.
felt empowering to me, that idea of feeling scared, experiencing something that was really intimidating, and working through it. And also I just really loved the movement. I was a
Okay.
gymnast, and I was quite strong and had a lot of body awareness. I was also a ski racer. So I was just a very active kid. And I think I just really loved the feeling of climbing. I loved the confidence it gave me. It just felt empowering. So I remember coming down from the wall and just telling my dad, we were at some like little festival thing where they let kids climb, whatever. And I just remember saying to my dad, how do I do this again? Can I do this again? Can we do this? And he just called the local climbing gym, and I went and did a little kids session. And then I started on a team, like a junior climbing team. Most gyms have teams now, and they travel around and they do competitions. And, being in Boulder, the team was not only for competition climbing, which is always indoors on artificial walls. They brought us outside as well because we
Oh,
had outdoor climbing near us. So I started outdoor climbing pretty much right away. And I started with a discipline called sport climbing, which is it's essentially just like the climbing gym, but transferred outside. Like the protection is pre-placed.
okay.
The emphasis is on the physical aspect. It's on like sort of solving the puzzle. The risk is relatively low. And so that's the discipline that I started out with, sort of parallel to indoor climbing and competition climbing.
You said it's somewhat prescribed outdoors, but I'm wondering, like, was the experience of being on an actual boulder or the lack of predictability to a certain extent in nature, was that more interesting, or is that something you grew to appreciate more over time?
I think, no, I think that I was interested in both right away, even though they are very different. Indoors, you have colored holds that you have to follow, and it's not obvious, but it's pretty clear like what you're supposed to do. And then outdoors, things are a bit more nebulous. If you're used to climbing indoors and you go outdoors, it can be quite jarring because there are there's no colored holds to follow. There's no path. You kind of have to figure it out for yourself. But for me, I was lucky that I was pretty much exposed to both parallelly, like, at the same time. And, my coaches were like, back in the day, it was like, you climb inside in order to climb outside, in order to be better outside. Now, it's not that way anymore, as I was saying. But back then, that was like the late 90s. That was definitely still kind of the attitude of, we're climbing inside and it's great and all, but you also climb outside. Like that's also what you do. Yeah.
And I wonder too, again, this probably sounds like a very like juvenile question, but there's a lot of different surfaces outside that you climb on. Is there a predictability or an idea that you go into when you go to something outside, like granite or some other sort of stone? Like, do you look at
Yeah.
it and think like these are all different, and then how do you approach the differences in the pieces you're trying to figure
Yeah.
out?
No, it's a great question. And it's something people often don't think about who don't climb. Different types of rock climbs differently.
Okay.
And there are certain people who prefer certain types. There are certain people who only climb on certain types. So
Oh,
granite, you mentioned granite. We have a lot of granite here in California. We have obviously Yosemite National Park, which is very famous, and it's all granite, and it's very glacier polished. And granite tends to be very smooth, and pretty featureless, except for cracks. So a lot of times we're climbing cracks when we're climbing on granite, which is a very specific kind of technique where you're putting your hands and feet inside of the crack, and you're essentially taking up space and constricting your hands to ascend. It's less steep in a lot of ways, so you have a lot of surfaces that are less than vertical. So there's a lot of emphasis on standing on your feet So really trusting your feet on these tiny, tiny little slippery features that oftentimes aren't even not even like a visible hold. It's more like you're just using surface area and friction to stay on the wall. It can be very delicate, that style of climbing. And then you have rock like limestone, which can be incredibly diverse. So very, very steep, very overhanging. We have these things called tufas, which is essentially they were formed from it's formed from the calcium in water running down over and over and over again, and it forms these protrusions of rock. If you imagine like a cave, if you've ever been like inside a cave and you see these stalactites and things coming down, that's kind of how limestone is formed. And so it's got a lot of features. It's probably more similar to the climbing gym because it's very heavily featured. There's a lot to grab onto. Yeah, and then you have sandstone, which is kind of a mix of both. You can have cracks, you can have really steep, and I love it all. I've climbed on all the different types of rock. I really enjoy it all, but it is, even for me, having climbed for 30 plus years, it's hard to transition between the different types, the different styles. It takes some getting used to every time. And then, yeah, when you go to an area and you look up at a route, we do what we call, even indoors in the climbing gym, we call it reading the route. And so you look up at it and you kind of speculate as to what you might do and how you might move. The more you practice it, obviously, the better you get at it. And then you kind of start climbing, and a good climber is able to have a plan. And then if the plan doesn't seem like it's working out, maybe they grab a hold that they thought was going to be good and it wasn't, you can pivot and you can try something else. And so a lot of it is based on having a plan, but being flexible enough to kind of shift that plan.
So correct me, because I thought like in the movies when they show the course the person's going on, it seems very identified, right? Like you go here and there and there and there. In real life, is it really that planned out in advance, or is it like that sort of a rough idea of how you go from A to B to C? And if it is a rough idea, how much interpretation are you finding along this route?
Yeah, so that is an interesting question. We're getting like in the weeds a little bit, but so basically what I'm saying is when you go up, when you've never tried something before,
Yeah.
and you're trying to do it for the first time without falling, we call that on-sighting. That's obviously the best style to climb something in. Your first try, you've never felt the holds before, you've never touched the holds before. That's often how competitions are run. You get one try, that's it. It's called an on-site attempt. You look at the route, you get a few minutes to look at the route, and then you get to try it. And that's it. That's your try. And so if you complete it that first try, and that's what I'm talking about when you kind of look at something and you're trying to predict and sort of surmise what you might do, what you might not do. Now, as the climbs get harder, especially outdoors, it's kind of like what you're saying. You get to try things over and over and over again, and you kind of rehearse things until you can complete it without falling. And that's what you're saying, where things are like identifiable and it seems like they know what they're doing. In a lot of these films you've watched, it's probably because someone's practiced over and over and over again. And so in that way, it becomes more like a performance. It's like you're executing a dance. You're trying to do it flawlessly. You're trying to do it without making any mistakes. A mistake would be a fall. If you fall, you essentially have failed and you have to start over again. So so there's kind of like two different ways to climb essentially. And when I'm talking about climbing, I'm talking about free climbing only. Free climbing is using your hands and feet to ascend a rock face and a rope in case of a fall. And so that kind of is an umbrella term for everything that you see indoors, everything you see in the Olympics, probably all the movies you've seen. That's that's what is free climbing.
No, that's helpful because again, it reads as something where there's a ton of rules, but then I also feel like there has to be a lot of room for interpretation, right? Because
Yeah,
so few people can do it.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's that many rules. It's more of like you have to say what you did, you know? So it's like if I climb something and I did it, on my first try, then I can say I did it on my first try. I on-sighted it. But if it took me, many, many, many tries, then I'd say we actually call it red pointing it. Then you say that you red pointed it. So basically you just have to say what you did. And then when you have a route or a rock climb, you can do it however you want. There's no rules. There's no judge. There's no judge telling you like, oh, your technique was bad, or, oh, you didn't do it the right way. You didn't, you can do whatever you want. It's like however your body fits is the right way. And so you can just kind of, you can get creative with it. And I think that's kind of why I love it so much is it is always different. It is like a really cool, like mind body experience. And there's a lot of creativity to it. Like there's moves I've done on rock that are just so cool and interesting and took me so long to figure out. And when you do kind of unlock that and solve the puzzle, it feels amazing.
I think that's sort of the thing that you see in all of the articles and everything else is it feels like everyone's wrestling, right? They're wrestling with something,
Yeah.
whatever that thing is and whatever it represents in other parts of their lives. And then they finally, most of the time, get some mastery over it. And that seems to
Yeah.
be part of the sort of everlasting draw of it, right? Like, as it keeps bringing people back in this sort of obsessive way to figure it out. And that I always find very interesting because it seems like such a like a passion, not just like the sport, but the desire to figure out the way through becomes so consuming, at least for the things I've looked at.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's more of along the lines of a lifestyle sport like surfing. It's something you do, a lot of people outside in Mother Nature. And it's like this really great experience of being outdoors and challenging yourself. And it's something that you can continue to do forever if you want.
And so, with that in mind, can you talk to me about technical versus dynamic climbing? Just so if someone doesn't know what that is, they'll have a baseline for that today. And how do you approach those two things differently, or for you, are they the same?
Yeah, I mean, they're just technical and dynamic are just two ways to explain movements in climbing. Technical generally is slower. It's really up for interpretation. Like it probably entails like more of a full body experience, more like better, delicate footwork and, really balancy, like things that require a lot of balance, about a lot of body awareness. Dynamic is yeah, you might be jumping a little bit more. You might be kind of like using momentum to go from one place to the next. Every climber kind of identifies as like, I'm more of a technical climber, I'm more of a dynamic climber, but everyone has to use both. You have to do technical moves, you have to do dynamic moves. It's basically they're just two adjectives to describe movements and climbs and styles.
Understood. And I think part of it, though, is it seems like, and so this is leading to my other question, is there are some differences sort of fundamental between men's bodies and women's bodies. And I'm curious, like, as a woman, when you approach either of those, specifically, women tend to have better balance and men tend to have better weight transferring abilities. Like, was there any piece of that puzzle you had to work on differently, or you had to, it came more easily to you? And if so, what was that experience like in your career to become sort of the holistic climber that you are now, where you do so many different kinds of climbs, but you also do them very well? Or was it all natural and you were just one of those physical people that was good at all of it off the bat?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that I'm like pretty good at everything, but I'm not excellent at anything. But that makes me a good all-around climber. I'm pretty adaptable. I understand what my weaknesses are, and my weaknesses are like what you would expect my weaknesses to be for a woman. Like I don't have as much power or pure strength. A lot of women do, like a lot of female climbers though do. That is one of their strengths. I am super flexible. I'm really good at getting my feet up high.
Okay.
I'm really good at keeping my hips super close to the wall. I have amazing endurance, so I can hold on to the wall for really long periods of time in order to figure things out. So I can climb long things, probably better than, shorter, more powerful things.
Are
And
you
I think
born with
that
that? Or is that something you
Yeah,
developed? Okay.
I mean, I've been climbing since I was 10, so it's hard to say. I think I sort of, my body developed as I grew because I started climbing before I hit puberty. So, my body has been sort of like developing as a climber ever since I was a child. So I think you do kind of adapt in those ways if you start doing something really, really young.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I think when I started out climbing, I just did all the things. I did all the different styles, and I think that helped form me into a really good all around climber, and not necessarily um, someone who's specified. And so yeah, and I think that climbing is a really interesting sport because it is a sport where the gap between men and women is quite narrow. The best men in the world are the best women in the world are very close to the best men in the world. Um, and then as you get, yeah, like men and women, it's such a complicated sport. And it's not that it only rewards upper body strength. It's just, it's so unique in that you have to utilize every aspect of your body. And it doesn't really discriminate between like if you're stronger, because if you're stronger, you might not be as flexible. And if you're taller, you might be able to reach really far, but you can't get your feet up as high. And so it's really cool because I can go climbing with, 6 foot tall teenage boys, and we do things completely different, but we still get to the top. And that's all that matters.
No, and I appreciate you saying it because sometimes when I watch you guys do these moves, like some of them seem very hard, especially those like little jumps between areas and then actually catching and landing against the rock. Like some of that stuff just, I don't know, to me, it looks like a very specific physical skill to be able to do those pieces,
Mm-hmm.
but also the way
Yeah.
that you wedge your body and then wedge your hands and move through things. But also, I think having the presence of mind to find the pieces as you go. I mean, all of it looks very personal and very challenging, if that makes sense. That you
Yeah.
sort of have to figure out your way through everything that's not uniform.
Yeah. And I think that's why we like it. Because it is personal and it's challenging and it's fun. It can be very social as well because you can work on things together. Like oftentimes we work on one thing together, even in in the climbing gym is a great example. And it's a very social experience because it's like you watch someone try something and they fail, and then you like see them and you think, oh, maybe we should try this. And then you try something else. And then, maybe one person can do it one way and the other person can do it the other way. And it's just this really interesting, like social experience where you're kind of like all working on a problem together.
Well, so I have several questions about this, but I'll jump into it now. So, like, the thing I noticed as well is the sort of camaraderie and encouragement it seems between with the top level climbers between each other. Like, I've thought several instances it was very moving to see the way
Mm-hmm.
that people show up for each other and how and the encouragement and all of that. And, is that something that's really pervasive in the community, or is it only when you guys are trying to tackle these like enormous possibly who knows if you can actually do it kind of tasks? Because I thought that was really striking, the way in which it's not like, oh well, you're going to get this thing or you're going to be the first one. Instead it's like, no, like how can I help and support you to make this happen?
Yeah, no, I think that is very pervasive in the community. It is a very social sport. I think that the idea of solving the puzzle, that's the goal. It's not to do it before somebody else. In competitions, it is, yeah. But even in competition, there's still a lot of camaraderie in competition. Because when the routes or the boulder problems are set, you come out together and you all look at it together.
Mm.
And you'll see if you watch the Olympics or something, they're all talking to each other. They're all kind of like,
Okay.
Bouncing ideas off each other. Like, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do this part? How are you going to do that? Are you going to grab that hold like this? Or are you going to grab it like that? Like, I don't know. Maybe we should try that. And then you'll notice like it can be kind of divided by language. Like you'll see like the people who speak English will try one thing. They'll all come out and they'll try the same thing. And then you'll see like the people who speak Japanese and they maybe don't speak English. You'll see them come out and they'll try it like a completely different way. And you're like, oh, those guys were talking. You kind of like know. But it is a very like, yeah, it's super pervasive. I think, you know, of course, there's, outlier examples, but in general, I would say it's a very like supportive uh, community. And yeah, I think it is because the goal is to kind of have this personal experience, but also solve the puzzle. And yeah, that's kind of the point. The point is not to just be better than other people
No, I
in a
mean,
way.
and that comes through, and again, as like someone who doesn't do this, that came through in a lot of the pieces of what went on. What I also thought was interesting is it seems like there's these moments, when you're paired up with other people, like in particular in your film, there's a couple of times when the gentleman you're climbing with, Alex, calls out to you a few times and is like, you can do it, or you can do this, or,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder, like, does that give you a little oomph when someone does that in that moment, or is that more just sort of the colloquialness of what's going on? Because I think like if I'm climbing a wall for 6 hours, like it probably actually is helpful to have someone like give you a
Yeah.
little encouragement on the way up.
Yeah, in that example, it's really helpful to have someone, especially people you trust. Like in my film, the partnership aspect I think is a really nice part of the film, because people often think of climbing as this very individual sport, and I think that film really showcases that partnership and that friendship. And yeah, when you're on a wall thousands of feet off the ground and you're trying really hard, and it's really nice to have your friends there. It's really nice to have their encouragement and their belief. Yeah, I think yeah, it's crucial for me.
And to that point as well, you've done a lot of other things, like when you went to like other areas with climbing mountains in the snow and traversing like huge physical expenditures to get from one place to another. And I know that you formed a couple really close friendships and relationship through those times as well. And I'm wondering, when you're in the downtime, how is the downtime constructed? And then what do you do when you're like in a tent with someone for like 10 hours or whatever it is? Like, how do you make that work? And is it innate that these are two people who want to connect? Or is it sometimes you're like stuck with this human being and you're like, well, I'm just going to do my best to get through this moment because it's so intimate, right? And you have nowhere to
Yeah.
go. Like, how does that dynamic work? And you're relying on this person the next day for whatever it is you need to actually get done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with those experiences and those trips, that's why we form these strong bonds with each other. Because we are going through things that are hard. We're going through things that are uncomfortable and scary. And, I think most of us, the people we surround ourselves with, where we live, the time we live in, um, we don't have to face that type of discomfort and suffering. And so this is really the only time that we get to have those kind of, yeah, those feelings and be scared and have to rely on each other. And so you form these really strong bonds with the people that you're with. That said, I think it is important to kind of like, before you go on a trip like that, recognize that you're going to probably be living with someone for 2+ months and in very close quarters and staying intense, and there is a lot of downtime. And yeah, the way it's constructed, I don't really know. You read books, you watch movies, you talk a lot of talking, a lot of just hanging out, like kind of like what. And there's probably, a lot of times there's no internet or anything like that. So it's kind of like what we used to do, what people used to do before
Yeah.
we had smartphones and things. And it's interesting, and I really I value those trips and those experiences. And I'm not going to say that I've like left every trip best friends with everyone who I went on the trip with, but I also think that's really valuable, because you really learn how to deal with people, and you learn how to work as a team, and you learn how to work through things that are hard. Those trips are where I've learned the most about kind of group dynamics, being on a team, being a team player, kind of compromising when you don't necessarily want to, trust, all of that.
That's it. I mean, again, it's very illuminating talking to you about all of these things in large part because, again, there's this idea, I think, at least that someone who doesn't climb has, right? And then after doing all this research, I was like, oh, this is like a really intimate, deeply personal experience that you have with these other people in these incredibly challenging terrains. And you're electing to do it, right? Like no one's making you do this. You're choosing to do it. And I think that's really fascinating because I can't think of any other activity that sort of combines the danger and the intimacy and the unknown quite the way that what you do does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's true. I think there are like other avenues of, adventure and exploration that touch on those types of themes. But most of them involve like traveling to faraway places and exploration. And, I think as humans, like, I think by nature, we like exploring, whether that's like the world around us or ourselves, our relationship with other people. And I think, yeah, as humans, we're just finding ways to continue to explore. And for me, it's kind of exploring my own personal limits and exploring. I just love seeing the world. I love
Yeah.
traveling. I love seeing other places and kind of experiencing other places. And, I've found that the best way for me to do that is through climbing.
And so I'm curious because another thing I noticed is when people tend to get married and have children, there seems to be a
Yeah.
very large shift. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering, A, is that true? And B, if it is true, what sort of becomes the surrogate? Or is there a surrogate? Or it's more like you're going to raise the kid and do the stuff there, and then you return to the more risky kind of climbing later. Like, how does one negotiate all of those pieces?
Yeah, it's been tricky, I would say. I always thought that when I had a kid, I wouldn't change.
Yeah,
And I was so afraid of changing. I
of
just
course.
thought, oh, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing adventures, and Adrian and I are going to do adventures together. And we're not going to change. We're not going to let that happen. Um, and then our son was born, and it totally happened. I totally changed. I didn't want to do the same things that I did at the same level of risk. And I, instead of being like grieving that and being super disappointed, it was kind of liberating because I was like, oh, okay, this is me. And I actually feel really good about it. I feel really content. I feel really happy. I have something in my life that I care very deeply about. And so these other things that I thought mattered to me so much just don't matter as much anymore. And so it's almost like I just don't need those experiences as much. That said, I still crave adventure and exploration and pushing my own limits. And I've still found ways to do that, honestly. Climbing is so diverse, and I can do it in ways that feel really good and balanced for my family. Um, and we still have adventures, and we still do amazing things together as a family. Like we went to Nepal when our son was 1 year old, and we went on a trekking trip. Usually we go to Nepal and we try to climb the biggest mountains in the world. And this time we just went and stood underneath them and went on hikes, and it was incredible. And I just was like, I would do that again in a heartbeat, because every time we've come here, we've just tried to be, it's so intense, it's so scary, we've tried to go so hard. And now I'm just like going on these hikes, and I'm really enjoying this place I've been to so many times, and I just never really enjoyed this part of it. So it's almost like rediscovering things again. And I honestly think the thing that will change the most is about to happen. And that's probably when our son starts school. Um, because that's up until now, it's been pretty easy. We just take him with us. We take him with us everywhere we go. We just bring him. And of course, we don't go to Pakistan anymore or Kyrgyzstan, but we still travel so much. And I think when he starts school, that's going to be when that shift happens. And I think it will be difficult.
And with that in mind, like, is there like a local thing that you can do? Is there another way that you can channel that attention, or this really
Yeah.
mandates a certain level of vastness to give you the feelings? Because to be fair too, by the time you had a kid, you'd already accomplished a great amount, right? Like it wasn't like you hadn't done anything. So, perhaps that also made that negotiation a little bit easier because a lot of the
Yeah.
boxes had been checked.
Exactly. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty satisfied with what I've done in my career. There's still so many things I could do and want to do, and I still push myself. And we've already kind of talked a lot about this, and we do have a lot of local things that we are kind of saving, I guess, because we're like, oh, we're going to be home a lot more, so we can do all of these things. I mean, we live in Tahoe. That's a place we've chosen to build our life, and we can climb, we could ski, we can trail run. We have so many ways, and honestly, I'm kind of excited for that chapter, because travel is amazing. It's one of the most amazing things, I think, but it's exhausting and it's hard, and I am really looking forward to being home more, honestly. And I think we'll still travel, we'll still do trips. It's going to be great. We just, my husband and I might have to do things a little bit more separately, like not always together, and we already are starting to do that a bit more.
And I think that's the thing that at least I feel like when I had a kid, I didn't really understand, is just how enormous the shift is, right? Like you sort of think, oh, we're just going to keep it can't be that different. And then you're like, oh, holy shit. Like the whole paradigm is a different place now.
Everything's different. Everything's different. Like my friends who don't have kids, it's just so hard because it's like they're inviting me to these dinners, and I'm like, we don't do dinner at 8 o'clock. Like we don't do it.
5 o'clock, my friend. Ready
like,
to
yeah,
party.
5 is great.
Yeah, no one, they don't want that though. So I know that you guys get asked this question all the time, but I want to ask it differently, which is, what is fear to you and what actually frightens you? Because there has to be some degree to which all of you are kind of not put together like the majority of people, right? Like if I did what you did, there would be no start, right? Like I would be like, I can't handle this, is too much. And I know you said in the beginning that you felt fear, but I feel like the way you either see it or process it or what it does for you is different. Like there's either a motivation in it that I lack, overwhelmingly, or what. But I'm curious, like, what is fear for you and how does it work? And is there stuff that actually frightens you, or is fear kind of a different emotional constitution for someone who does what you do?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I've ever been asked it quite in that way. Um, and I think fear to me is it's that deep-seated feeling of anxiety and intimidation and kind of like uncertainty, stepping into the unknown where you don't know quite what's coming or how it's going to be. It's sort of that like ethereal feeling of uncertainty and unknowing. And then you have this very physical response to that. That's a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. I think that that's what fear is. I think that you hit on something, and I think that that's what a lot of people miss is the desire. And I think that when I talk about Alex Honnold, I bring this up a lot. We all feel fear. Like all of us feel fear. But the difference between someone like myself or someone like Alex is that we want to be there. We really want to have the experience. We really are passionate about what we're doing. And without that, then the motivation isn't there. And so, yeah, then of course you just have this like feeling of dread and terror. And like, of course you want to run away from that and you don't want to like continue on. And so go ahead.
Just to ask really quick, I'm curious, do you feel the likelihood of something bad happening is like 80-20 or 50-50? Because for me, I would be like 90-10, something bad will happen, right? And I feel like for you, all that you sort of feel like maybe 20-80, like 20% something bad could happen, but 80% I think I can do this. Or is it not that way?
Um, I guess I don't quite think of it in terms of that, the
Okay.
percentages. I do think about risk
Okay.
in that sort of way. And I think that risk is something that should go right alongside fear. Fear is the emotion, and risk is more of like the rational analysis of like what could happen and what plan you have in place in case something happens, and the value of an experience, whether or not it's worth taking a certain level of risk. And I think, risk analysis is something that me and my husband do all the time with everything. and we're very used to it. We're very comfortable talking about it. We're very comfortable talking about like if certain experiences have enough value to take a certain level of risk. And I think now that we're parents, that sort of equation has changed a lot. Um, and so I think a lot of the climbing that I do, I really do feel like I really do feel like the chances of something bad happening are pretty slim because I take a lot. We're very conservative. As much as it like kind of looks like we might not be, if you take into account our experience, so like the decades of sort of preparation and experience and skill, and then yeah, this intimate knowledge of what we're doing and of the mountains and of our systems and of all the sort of precautions that we have in place that are probably not very obvious to someone who doesn't do what we do. Then in general, I feel like we're quite safe, honestly. And then I think, but I don't think that eliminates fear. Like I think that fear comes in still, fear will still come in because humans naturally feel fear when things feel uncertain, when you feel like you might fall, you might fail, when there's a lot of exposure, stuff like that. It's a very human emotion. I would say to that I have felt fear a lot, probably a lot more than a lot of people. And I have a really good understanding of what it feels like and how to manage that when it comes up. So it's kind of like that. It's like a little bit of therapizing, I guess, it's like, oh, the fear is here. I'm not going to like conquer the fear because it's an emotion. Like you can't just like crush your emotions. That's completely unrealistic and it just doesn't work. So instead I'm going to like acknowledge the fear and recognize it and give it space. But also I have a lot of trust in myself and then I'm able to move forward.
Were you always that way or that's something you earned over time?
No, I wasn't always that way. I worked through it and it's, I think when I was a kid, I was very afraid of even like taking falls in the gym and I had to work through that. And so I've always sort of like experimented in fear management, sort of unknowingly. And then, in recent years, as I've matured, I think I've gained a better understanding of it and kind of like have in my brain, I'm like, oh, actually, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting again to hear you talk about it, right? Because, well, like, so again, this may be an odd question, but like when you fall, oftentimes there's this yell, but the yell doesn't actually seem to be like you're afraid. It almost seems like it's
Mm-mm.
frustration. And
Yeah,
so when you fall, can you talk to me about what goes through your head in those moments? Because I'm sure there's some piece where you're like a little afraid, but it seems more like it's like a fuck rather than
yeah,
a
that's
fear.
exactly what yeah, no, when I scream and fall, it's total frustration. It's anger. It's like, I can't believe I fell or I didn't want to fall or whatever. It's just an outburst of emotion, but there's usually very little fear when I'm trying hard. I don't have as much fear because I'm kind of focused and I'm not distracted. And I really like being in that place. That means I've succeeded at managing the fear, and now I'm focusing on the task and I'm just climbing. And then when I fall, that's like frustration. And with the style of climbing that I do, like those falls are very safe. They're very clean. It's something people always ask climbers, like, how many times have you fallen? It's like hundreds of thousands of times, like it's so many. We're so used to it.
Okay. No, because I just thought it was interesting because there's always this huge guttural noise, right? And I'm like, I don't think they're
Mm-hmm.
afraid. I think they're just pissed off.
Yeah, we call them like throwing a wobbler. Like people are
Oh,
wobbling.
okay. Got it. Cool. I'm learning all the terms now, so I feel like I've got a good handle on that.
Yeah.
Um, so climbing seems to take like a lot of mental focus and patience, but also managing your mind as you spoke about. An example that I was interested in specifically is I'm probably going to butcher this and I apologize. In 2014, you tried to climb Hakakabo Razi.
A cockabo. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't do it well, but not that bad.
That was
And
good.
you
Yeah.
and you ended up turning back saying because it was too scary. And I'm curious, like, What does that look like then? If you're like, this one's too much, and how often have you encountered something where you're like, this is a hard pre-child that you were like, this is a hard no?
Yeah, I mean that trip is a funny example because we were doing something called alpine climbing, which is probably the most dangerous form of climbing because it utilizes snow and ice and big mountains, a lot of unpredictable circumstances. You can't predict snow or rockfall as well in the big mountains as you can say like at a ski resort or rock climbing. And we were out there. We were in Myanmar, which is, formerly known as Burma. And we were on the very like eastern tip of the Himalaya, trying to climb this mountain that had never been climbed before. And we were really, I think when you're in situations like that, you really have to think about what's going on around you and where you are. So we were probably like a 10-day walk from any sort of hospital, no helicopters, so no easy rescue. Um, and the climbing was really difficult. So there was like this ridge that wasn't just like a clean, smooth ridge. It was like, imagine like spiky, like the back of like a dinosaur or a dragon with like these peaks that were like you had to climb up and then down and then up and then down, and you're traversing across.
Yeah.
And we were all exhausted. And so I was the youngest one on that team. I had the least amount of experience. And I sort of reached the point where I realized that like my level of experience and skill, especially with that style of climbing, alpine climbing, I hadn't done very much of it. I just knew. And also like going back to that desire piece, I was like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to go to the summit. And I think I have a very healthy relationship with success when it comes to the like riskier forms of climbing. Like I don't need to go to the summit of a mountain. I really don't. I don't have that like desire. And maybe it's because I also do I'm also a rock climber and I have all these other things that I want to do. And I've succeeded in other ways. When I go on trips like that, I am there for the adventure and the experience. And when it gets to be too much for me, I know that it's too much. And I just really am not attached to the outcome.
That's cool because I was going to ask you, like, when you watch some of these other movies, specifically with these other men, I don't know if that makes any difference, but like they seem to be uniformly, unidirectionally obsessed with accomplishing this goal. And I was wondering, like, is that common with all climbers? And what is that obsession about? Or it sounds like with you, though, specifically, it's much more like, do I want to do this while I enjoy doing it? Is there some sort of pleasure, maybe not being the right word, but something like that in this for you? And if there's not, you're kind of like, I'm good. I don't need to do that, which seems like a really great way to pick and choose where you want to spend your time rather than
Yeah,
like
I
this
mean,
ghost that you want to like somehow wrap your hands
yeah.
around.
I mean, I really think it's because I love rock climbing so much. And I think that's my first love and I'm obsessed with it. And I do want to succeed and I do get obsessed with certain routes or climbs, but that it's so much safer. It's so much more in my control that I know there's like a very, very like, yeah, there's a very high likelihood of survival for me if I do succeed or I don't succeed, or if I try as hard as possible, if I like really, 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 really put all of my energy into it, it's not a life or death situation. Whereas these like life or death mountain situations, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm not like obsessed with this. I'm here for the adventure. I'm here for the good times. I'm here for the vibes. I'll suffer. I'm great at suffering, like to a certain extent. But like, if it gets ID senses, like we might die, then I'm out. I'm totally out.
I love that for you. I really do. I think that's such a great life choice, you know?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I'm obsessed with like a relatively safe form of climbing.
Wonderful. Your parents must be so happy. They must be thrilled.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
Another weird question. Like when I watch you guys do these climbing things, I hold on, I have the terms written down. Finger strength and footwork.
Yeah.
How do you develop that? Or do you develop it over time? How do you figure out how to hold yourself and how to hold this mass beneath you in these tiny things? Or is it just the repetition teaches you how to, like, how do you develop those skills
Yeah, it is, I mean, it's mastery, it's doing the thing. It's
over and
climbing
over?
over and over. I mean, I think the gym is one of the best ways to kind of understand movement.
Okay.
And thankfully, like, gyms are just a great way to like go and get like a workout and then also work on those skills.
Yeah.
But the very like the very best, like the footwork, that also comes from going outside a lot and climbing outside. And yeah, you learn how to stand on your feet. Yeah, footwork is gained through all different styles of climbing, exposing yourself to all, yeah, different kinds of stone. Yeah, all of that. And then finger strength is gained through climbing and through also have these things called hangboards.
Okay.
And it's
Oh, where you're
essentially
like
like
this.
a board, yeah, with different like size holds and grips. And you like, we have hangboard workout.
So I wonder too, I would think it's fair to say like women's relationships to their bodies are not great in this country and they're challenging. But I think you rely so heavily on yours and you know it so well. How does that change over time? And then as you get older and better, but also your body changes after children and all the rest of it, like how does being this good at this sport, but also being so dependent on your body and needing to know it so well, how does your relationship to it change over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think climbing, eating disorders are pretty pervasive
Oh,
among
okay.
the young athletes for men and women. And I definitely had that when I was young, when I was a teenage girl. I think it can be quite hard because it is a strength to weight ratio sport. The fastest way to achieve success is to be as light as possible. But I think that because it's also a lifestyle sport and it's something that people stay in for a very long period of time, it's so unsustainable to do that. Um, that it does lead to kind of like a crash and burn and then a bit of a reckoning, which is what I had to go through of like, okay, you can achieve success this way and it works, but it ruins everything. And it completely ruins your love for the sport and it's super unhealthy. And so, in my early 20s, I definitely had to kind of go through that. And I think that's sort of why I branched out and did other styles of climbing. And I went on those big, long expeditions and wasn't as focused on like the gymnastics physical side of climbing and that performance and competitions. And I think, on one hand, it was really hard that I went through that. But then now I'm really glad that I did because I think I have a pretty mature relationship and I've been through it. And I kind of know what it's like and I know what that side's like. And I know that it's kind of a dark place. And I know that if I want to keep climbing forever, I have to kind of be really good to my body. And I have to and if I want to, if I wanted to be healthy and have a kid, like that was also important. I mean, I think when athletes, especially women, go really, really far on that side of kind of deprivation and punishment, it can make it really hard to have children later. And I think that I've seen that happen to some people. And so that was also really scary for me. And I feel like I got really lucky kind of avoiding that. And then it was hard, like being pregnant and having to go through that process was quite difficult for me mentally and emotionally. Um, but I think all of those experiences are really formative and I think there are good parts to them. And now I think I have a really healthy relationship with my body and what it can do. And I'm really proud of it. And I think, yeah, just like any sport, as you get older, you gain experience, you have a lot of maturity, but your body does like get weaker and start to break down. I'm hoping that doesn't happen yet. And I'm going to try my hardest to like be as strong as I can, as long as I can. I know my performance will like diminish over time and I'm okay with that. I think that that's fine. Um, Now I just really enjoy pushing myself. I really love training. I love doing things that exhaust me. I find it to be just so rewarding. Uh, so yeah, I think I've kind of been through it all when it comes to that body image stuff. And I think, once you have a kid and you kind of realize like how amazing the human body it is, especially women's bodies, it's just kind of like, it's so rad that we can do that.
Well,
And then now I can go back and climb actually just as hard as I climbed when I was 18 years old. That's amazing.
what's interesting hearing you say it, because honestly, I thought what you were going to say was going to be the total other direction. Because
Hmm.
as an outsider, right, looking at you, I'd be like, oh my God, this woman must just wake up in the morning and be like, everything about my whole thing is incredible. All of it's amazing. I can do
Oh
these
no.
things so few other people can do. I feel all this power and this ability. And that's the answer I was expecting. And I was like, oh,
Oh no.
that is not her experience at all. But on
No.
my end, it's as an outsider, you're looking and you're like, wow, like what is it like to be in a body like that, that can do all these things and has so much ability and has so much strength and can like lift her leg up into this sliver and hoist herself up. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing to look at. And so I was like, that's what I thought you were going to say. It's like, I feel great.
Oh,
I am
yeah.
blessed.
No,
And I would be
it's
like,
all
cool.
perspective, right?
No, and I mean, I'm so sorry that that was not the case. Because again, looking at you, it's like, God, like what a gift you got, and you work hard for. I don't mean to undercut it, but like, what a gift you got that you are
Yeah.
this kind of physical specimen that can like do these things. Like that's really, I mean, I think you get given some gifts, and then you have to figure out how to optimize them. But you can do things that so few other people can do and do them well and do it with just your body. Like it's so
Yeah.
cool. I mean,
Yeah,
your
it is
brain.
cool. I mean, I think when we surround ourselves with elite athletes, we forget
Sure.
that.
Sure.
you know, like in the circle that I travel in, you're kind of like, well, everybody's like this and everybody's crushing it. So I'm not special.
As a non-athlete, I like, at least for me, like that picture you have on the cover of your movie with your like abs. I was like, what is it even like to be that person and have that level of like physical power? It's so cool.
Oh, yeah, but my brain is probably the same. I
You
have the
should look
same
at the
doubts.
picture. Look
I
at
have
the
the
picture
same
and be like,
struggles.
that bitch can do anything. It's so cool. It's
That's
true.
really funny. Yeah. Oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you.
But I mean, I
Oh,
think it's amazing. And I think like
thank
what a
you.
cool thing to have a body like that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
I've worked pretty hard, so I'm psyched. It's nice to feel good. I'm almost 40, so it's actually really fun to feel strong still. Like it's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
psyched.
No, I think I mean, that's part of what I love about you and what you do is that you're one of these people where your body has sort of the unlimited potential and how cool that is.
Yeah, let's hope.
Until you hit like 50 and then maybe it really changes. But
Yeah,
like right
maybe
now,
50's downhill.
live large. Live
Yeah, I'm
large.
working on it.
I
Thank
know,
you.
I feel you. And then you've got the movies out. Do you have anything else you're working on right now?
No, just the movie stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it right now. We're just
What
yeah,
about a book? I
hanging.
thought you had a book.
Yeah, I don't have a book. That might be the next thing, but I feel like I need to like live a little bit more.
Okay. Okay. There's no
My
deadline.
husband's trying to write a book actually right now,
Oh,
which is like
cool.
a whole thing.
That's
He's
great.
he's 11 years older than me though, so I'm like
Yeah.
maybe when I'm like that old.
No, no, that works. That works. But I think you should, especially I'll be curious what this thing is of moving into motherhood and moving into your 40s feels like. And I would be so
Yeah,
curious, again, from such a fitness specimen as yourself, like what that experience is like,
yeah.
unlike
I'm
the normal ones like us.
sure it'll be amazing and also hard and all the
Yeah.
things.
I know, but you've
Yeah.
got physical resilience a lot of us don't have,
I
you know?
hope so. Yeah, we'll
You do.
see. No, I
You
do.
do.
I do. Yeah. So,
It's awesome. And that's what's so lovely to watch, is it's lovely to just watch someone who's really good at something do that thing.
well, thank you. I
Of
appreciate that.
course.
This was a
My
great
pleasure.
chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope it wasn't too
Yeah.
like noob because I
No, I kind of like it actually. It's fun. It's like it's kind of nice. It's fun to talk about climbing with people who don't climb because it's less like in the weeds in a way, and it's just kind of it helps me like actually think about how I feel about climbing, which I've been doing a lot of lately. And that's really nice.
Thank you.
Because it
Because
is
it's,
like, why do I like climbing? You know, like it's hard to talk to climbers about it in a way.
but I would definitely, I love hearing about it. And I think too, it's just interesting because it's like when you go on like Reddit and stuff, the things people fall down about this stuff is like
Oh
so
my God, no.
intense and
Yeah,
crazy.
no.
And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I don't go
oh,
in there.
don't.
I can't go in there.
But I looked,
No.
because I was like, what does this mean? Or how does this work? And like
Yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah.
threads
That's
would
how,
come up and
yeah,
I'd be like, well, how are there so many feelings about this? And I'd be like, oh my God, like people get very worked up, which
totally.
I was like, this must be another part of it. I have no interest, but this must be another part
Yeah,
of,
just like any world, right? Like people just
yeah.
get so deep.
Oh, a lot of feelings.
Yeah,
All right, but
yeah.
hit me up if you need anything. I'm here. I'm so grateful for your time. And again, you are lovely and it's just so interesting being able to talk to someone who does what you do as well as you do it. So thank you.
Thank you. I
Of
appreciate
course.
this. Well, this was wonderful.
We'll
Yeah,
talk again.
have a great day. Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll talk
Thank you.
again.
Holler if you need anything.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds perfect.
Bye.
Bye.